reporting.
Ukrainian security services, backed by French police, have arrested the suspected administrator of a Russian-language cybercrime platform. Authorities say the platform served as a marketplace for stolen data, hacking tools, and illicit services. The suspect was arrested in Kyiv on Tuesday. Breaking news at townhall.com. Two American freight railroads have an urge to merge.
Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern confirm merger talks that would create North America's largest railroad, a coast-to-coast road. The merger would combine the largest and smallest of the country's 6 major freight railroads, but there is debate over whether such a merger could win the approval of federal regulators. They've set a high bar for consolidation in the crucial industry. Rich Thomason, Washington.
Tesla shares are falling after CEO Elon Musk warned of a few rough quarters as the company shifts focus to offering a self-driving taxi service. Today, Tesla reported a 12% revenue drop. The European Central Bank leaving interest rates unchanged for the time being, waiting to see how big a blow President Trump's tariffs will inflict on the economy before deciding whether to cut the interest rates once again. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
And welcome. It is time for Mr. Constitution Radio. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, douglasvgibbs.com. And we are on Zaki Radio. Zaki Radio, America Matters Media. It's got some Salem Network going on, other affiliate stations. 93.7 FM, AM 1060 in Reno, Nevada. ZakiRadio.com. If you want to listen live, you just pick one of those choices on that page and then click live. I'm on every Wednesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays with my good friend Warhamster, and then solo here on Thursdays, 11 a.m. West Coast time. And there's always lots to talk about, so I'm glad to be here. It's an amazing thing because I get accused of wanting one side or the other to be in office so that I have something to talk. There's always something to talk about. And I'll tell you something I have been talking about for years, many years, is this Russian collusion narrative, and that it was a hoax. The moment it appeared, I told my listeners it was a hoax, a fabrication, a political weapon wielded by the left to delegitimize Donald Trump. And now we've got Tulsi Gabbard, the current director of national intelligence, stepping up to the White House podium and confirming that what many of us suspected all along from the very beginning, what I was saying from the very beginning. And she's basically saying that this thing went straight to the top. It's not just a hoax. We don't just have proof and evidence of it all. It went straight to the top. Barack Hussein Obama himself, allegedly, directed intelligence agencies to alter their assessments to make it look like Russia was pulling strings to elect Donald J. Trump. Now, let me repeat that. The former president of the United States, the savior of the Democrat Party and of the country and the first black president, and you could throw all these different labels, how wonderful everybody thought he was, and won a Nobel Peace Prize before he started all those wars. The man who once said his administration was scandal-free is now accused of orchestrating a narrative so twisted it makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. Now, Gabbard says the intelligence community was pressured to manufacture a conclusion that Russia wanted Trump in office. And I thought to myself, when that was going on, why would Russia want Trump in office? He's against what they stand for. If they want to bring back their Soviet Union, glory days, and Putin, the KGB guy, wants someone he can work with, he's going to want a Democrat. It's going to be the opposite. So that right there told me it was a bunch of junk. But, the intelligence community was pressured to manufacture this idea that Russia wanted Trump in office, despite their earlier assessments saying otherwise. This wasn't just political spin. This was a full-blown attempt to rewrite reality and sabotage a presidency before it even began. Now, what happens when someone dares to speak the truth? Well, there's always going to be blowback from the left, because that's what they do. They, even when the lie is revealed that it's a lie, they will do whatever they can to perpetuate that lie and convince you. Ned Price, former Biden State Department mouthpiece, penned an op-ed in Fox News. Fox News, the Rupert Murdoch, not so much control anymore. The kids, all of them but one, are anti-Trump. So they were happy to publish this op-ed, Fox News, calling and Ned Price, this Obama holdover, this Biden State Department mouthpiece, wrote that Gabbard's revelations are a dangerous effort to rewrite history. They're rewriting reality, but she's rewriting history. Dangerous? You bet it's dangerous to the people who built their careers on this lie. Price accuses Gabbard of confusing hacking with influence operations, as if the American people can't tell the difference between a phishing scam and a psychological operation run by foreign actors with the help of domestic bureaucrats. And here's the kicker. Price doesn't refute the documents that Gabbard released. He doesn't deny the timeline. He doesn't explain why intelligence assessments suddenly flipped after a closed-door meeting in December 2016. He just calls it conspiratorial fiction and hopes the media echo chamber will drown out the facts and people will go, oh, well, he's an expert, I guess. We'll listen. This is classic deep state damage control. They're not debating the evidence. They're attacking the messenger. And Tulsi Gabbard, to her credit, isn't backing down. And they've tried to divide her and Donald Trump before. Remember when she said, I can't remember now what it was she said, and he claimed she didn't, and she didn't. It was a misinterpretation of what they claimed she said. But now she's not backing down. She's got these documents. She's got the proof, and she's handed the documents to the DOJ and the FBI. She's calling for accountability, and that's what terrifies them. Because if this house of cards collapses, it won't just be Obama's legacy at stake. It'll be the credibility of every institution that helped prop up this hoax. And here's the thing about it, too, that is an amazing thing, is, excuse me, is that Tulsi Gabbard is a former Democrat. She used to be a part of this game. I think that's what makes them even madder. One of their people have turned against them because she's seen the truth. She's recognized what's going on. And I'm excited about this, actually. We'll see what happens. Now, I got a little bit more to talk about with it. And one of the things that Ned Price in his piece says is, well, you know, the bots from Russia, that's our proof. That's our proof. They were influencing everybody. That's our proof that what she's saying is a bunch of junk. I'm going to tell you something after the break that completely kills all of that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Mr. Constitution Radio will be back.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite nonprofit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
One in 3 adults in America have prediabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mom my. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
The nonprofit Reno Sparks Assistance League Thrift Shop offers quality merchandise, including a selection of women's and children's apparel and shoes, books for every age, baby clothes, accessories, sporting goods, toys, housewares, linens, home decor, and seasonal items and jewelry, all at affordable prices. Come in the shop, donate, or join this all-volunteer organization. Assistance League Thrift Shop, open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4 at 1701 Vassar Street in Reno.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
All right, welcome back, Mr. Constitution Radio. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, douglasvgibbs.com to locate me online. I write regularly, and back in what was it? February of 2023, I wrote an article about this Russia hoax, but also about Hamilton 68 and that fraud regarding the Russian bots. Now, understand, tyrants lie, they cheat, they come up with some pretty diabolical schemes. This is what they do. Tulsi Gabbard is revealing it. And these schemes arose when Donald J. Trump stuck a stick in their spokes because he was challenging their power, their position, the hard left consortium of globalists and power-seeking collectivists. And so they concocted a scheme to convince the public that a perpetual war was going on, that the enemy has infiltrated American politics, that the Russians, it had to be the Russians, because there was no way Hillary Clinton could lose in 2016. She was the heir apparent. Obama was hugging her and putting her out front. And here's the next phase of this wonderful fundamental, the chance to fundamentally change the United States. And somehow the glass ceiling didn't get broken. She didn't make it to the White House. Couldn't be because Trump won. Couldn't be because people didn't trust the Democrats. Couldn't be because this guy who was some type of temporary anomaly in politics was able to scrap together enough votes. It must have been the Russians. And so the Russians were the scapegoat for the 2016 election, and the cabal behind online opinion that dared to disagree with progressive commie left's narratives, that was launched. And we knew it was a bunch of junk. We knew that the higher ups were behind it. We knew that the game was really nasty. Then after putting the message out there that the Russians were crawling through the Republican Party, and we knew they were lying, and that the Russians were the puppet masters behind everything Trump did, and we knew they were lying, and that the Russians were controlling everyone around Trump, they created an image revealing hordes of those enemies online. The smoke and mirrors worked perfectly until, and this is the first time Elon Musk had a positive influence on Trump, when he decided to release Twitter files showing the reality behind the curtain. The Russia narrative had real players who they said were Russian infiltrators and influencers. But the reality was nearly all of it was simply a mask that looked Russian, placed on the identities of some very real people that, to be frank, had nothing to do with Russia, and instead were pro-liberty enemies of the hard left machine perpetrating the scheme. Twitter file releases were flying into the public eye, and since Elon Musk took it over, and then he changed it to X, you know the story. And understand, Elon Musk, and I've never believed him to be anything otherwise, he's not a conservative. He's not a constitutionalism ally per se. The guy's a transhumanist, for God's sake. And I appreciate what he did with Doge. I appreciate the fact that for a while he was an ally with Trump, but I told you guys even then, it was temporary. But one thing I can say is he's definitely not a fan of what the hard left has been doing. And so in that sense, he kind of fits the enemy of my enemy is my friend label, at least temporarily. So Musk's Twitter file releases exposed fraud and media complicity with government that had been used against the critics of the power players of the evil cabal of globalist leftism and mercantilist elites in ways that none of us could have imagined. I mean, I'm a writer. I've written fiction, and I couldn't create a more evil, detailed, diabolical story about a hostile government and societal takeovers if I tried. Truth is stranger and more diabolical than fiction in this case. And the Russia election hoax was only step one. It needed to be followed up if the hard left was to dismantle the Trump problem that had flopped on their front porch. The data cheat for the election was overwhelmed by Trump's popularity. They tried to cheat. They tried to take the election. They tried to steal it, which I believe they pulled off in 2020. Thank God, though, because I much prefer Trump after having to wait 4 years, because now he knows what he's really up against and who his friends really are, than had he just won re-election. But they were doing all they could to hide their voter roll election fraud game. So the Russian hoax game was dreamed up, not only to create an excuse, but also so that they had so they had a distraction from what they had been up to. And so they put it into action. And then, during the early years of Trump's presidency, Hamilton 68 emerged as a source of news. And the leftist media gobbled it up. The news stories largely claimed that Russian bots were being tracked online and that the Russians were feeding us all kinds of fake news. The truth is, it was all a game to cover up the Democrat parties and their myriad of allies' part in the attacks against the 2016 election of Donald Trump. Hamilton 68 produced a list of 600 accounts that were tied to the Russians, allegedly. However, once the Twitter files were released, it was found that the Russian influence on that list of accounts was, well, not there. Instead, the list was full of real Americans who in ordinary conversations were tagged as being Russian influenced or Russian influencers. In short, all of it was one big fraud. Ned Price didn't talk about that in his article. He didn't bring up the Hamilton 68 fraud. He didn't recognize that Tulsi Gabbard is not full of it because we already have evidence of the game. And the fact that the enemy resorts to lying is not a surprise. That is what they do and have been doing since the beginning of time. And most of those Americans tagged as Russian were actually conservatives, the real enemy of the hard left Democrats and their rhino allies. Hamilton 68 was a fraud from the get-go, designed to propagate the Russian election collusion hoax while vilifying and censoring any messages coming from conservative voices. Trump was popular, and they were willing to do whatever it took on the technology information battlefield to end the discussions that were pro-Trump. Then, as Twitter and other social media sites turned conservative talk into Russian influence propaganda in the eyes of the public, the leftist media ran with it, happy to claim that the Russians, who were the international enemy, were also sounding like Trumpsters and behind Trump's popularity. It was the Russians. Because remember, Hillary Clinton was so popular, everybody loved her. How is it that she could have lost? It had to have been the Russians. And the list of people that were behind the craziness at the time was an incredible list. Little did we know, and I think we did know, but little did we have evidence of, that Obama was at the top of that list. Hillary's on that list. Clint Watts, Bill Kristol, CNN contributor, John Podesta, Mike Morrell, Michael Anthony McFaul. These people are on that list of collaborators, conspirators. The Russian election collusion story and the Russian bots influencing the various stories regarding various politicians definitely had an impact on our system and the culture. Conservatives were targeted, and the opinions of normal people were altered by it. Hamilton 68 went after anyone who was a critic of the leftist consortium run by people like the Clintons, Obamas, George Soros, and all the other collectivist, globalist, anti-liberty players. Thanks to Elon Musk, before Elon Musk even was a Trump ally, another cat was out of the bag. The truth had been put out there, but it wasn't being allowed by the media. It wasn't being recognized. They were doing everything they could to cover it up. And now we got Tulsi Gabbard saying, whoa, wait a second. We have communications that shows that, this Russia hoax comes from the top. That the intelligence community said, oh, no, Russia's not involved, and suddenly changed their story under Obama's command. And now someone like me tries to broadcast the truth. And I believe this could put the power players behind bars. I don't know about Obama because of the argument that the president has immunity when it comes to his duties as president. Well, this is outright treason. This is not within his duties. I think Obama ought to be prosecuted. I think he ought to be put behind bars. That's just me. But here's the problem. The criminals are in control of the media. They have control of the information highway. They are the auditors of their own actions, the elections, the legal system. It is they who guide the voices everyone hears in the media and guides the voices that are in the inferior courts. You got their fingers in certain machines during the elections. And until that hold on our institutions has been shattered, the fraud, the lies, the evil will continue. This is what they do. And when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, understand that, that what she represents, what she's doing, what she's fighting for, she's on target. She has the evidence. I believe she has the evidence. Ned Price's piece is a pure propaganda piece. The left and what they're trying to say is completely a smear camp. They can't stop their disinformation. They're addicted to it. They have to be, because their whole thing comes crumbling down. Barack Obama was involved with the plot to subvert the Trump administration. He was the one who began it. And it amazes me how much they're clawing to protect themselves. When actually it doesn't amaze me, I get it. They're evil. This is what they do. We've had a close examination of declassified materials, investigative reports, historical context reveals that Tulsi Gabbard's disclosures are far from conspiratorial fiction. They expose legitimate flaws in the ICA and evidence of politicization within the intelligence community. Her core claim, the Obama administration officials buried intelligence showing Russia did not intend to achieve election hacking while manufacturing a broader conspiracy narrative, is supported by declassified documents. In 2020, then DNI John Ratcliffe released Russian intelligence notes indicating Hillary Clinton approved a plan in July 2016 to fabricate a scandal linking Trump to Russian election interference as a distraction from her email controversies. It began before the election even happened. We're going to shift gears when we come back. Let's talk about Mamdani when we get back. Let's talk about the communists in our country. Don't go anywhere.
Real Estate Radio. I talk about the subjects that help you as a home buyer, seller, or investor. Some people might just focus on the negative things, so guess where they're going? We do it differently. We focus on the positive aspects of today's real estate opportunities. You might have to navigate through some murky waters, but we're here to help you achieve success. The Nevada Real Estate Radio, Thursdays, 3 p.m. on 93.7 FM. Nevada Real Estate Radio.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Charbacue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Charbacue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Charbacue Reno.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. That's 800-432-8150.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
And welcome back, Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution. This is Mr. Constitution Radio on Zaki Radio, ZakiRadio.com, ZakiRadio.com, ZACKY Radio.com, the America Matters Media Network, and throughout the country on affiliate stations. Welcome back to the program, DouglasVGibbs.com, DouglasVGibbs.com, if you want to visit me online. And in the heart of what was once the proud symbol of American capitalism, and I hate using that word, capitalism was the word created by Karl Marx to make the free market just another ism. But I'm going to get to that later in the show. So in the heart of what was once a proud symbol of American capitalism, American free market, the economic center of the world, some might say, New York City, a new candidate for mayor has emerged, and I've mentioned him before, but I want to get deeper here. His name is Zoran Mamdani. He's not just a progressive. He's not even just a socialist. He calls himself a democratic socialist, but that's basically a self-declaration as being a communist who's running on a platform that would have made Khrushchev, Stalin, and all those other, Trotsky, Lenin, made them all blush. And the most astonishing part is he's being taken seriously. Let's not sugarcoat it. Mamdani's agenda isn't some quirky millennial daydream. It is a full-blown manifesto for the destruction of private property, the evisceration of public safety, and the systematic dismantling of everything the American constitutional order stands for. You know, he wants to defund the police. He wants to abolish prisons, two foundational pillars of civil society, law and order. You have people have punishment for that, be responsible for their actions, take responsibility for their actions. The idea isn't to reform or improve the justice system. That's not what he's calling for. His solution is to eliminate it. How well did that work in all the places where they started defunding the police? Guess what? That stopped really fast. Crime was out of control. Look at what's going on in California with their lax policies. He wants to empty the jails. He wants to strip away law enforcement. He wants to replace police officers with social workers. Because in the Marxist fantasy land of Mamdani's mind, criminal behavior is just a symptom of capitalism. Therefore, the criminal is the real victim. Then there's his assault on private health care. He wants universal government-run health care, while simultaneously proposing the state-operated hospitals be prohibited from suing anyone for medical debt. In other words, make health care free, destroy any mechanism making it solvent, let the taxpayer carry the wreckage. And then how about housing? And when I heard this one, see, what they mostly talk about, well, rent control, which is already damaging. No, he goes beyond that. If you listen to what he has said, Mamdani doesn't just want rent control. He wants to ban private ownership of housing. He wants to convert it all into government-controlled rental properties. You don't own your home, the government does. And if you want to keep living there, you better stay in line. It's not just bad policy, it's an open war on the American dream. And here's what happens every time it's done. You wind up with empty, abandoned properties, and then the riffraff, the homeless, all that starts moving into it. It destroys communities. And then what happened in Soviet Union is then once you're in your stack 'em and pack 'em housing, eventually what the Soviet Union did, because everybody has to be equal, is they passed a law disallowing curtains or any type of coverings on your windows. Did you know that? I have a friend of mine who visited Moscow back then. He says nobody had curtains on their windows. And I asked why. And so that if you have something that's above somebody else that makes you not equal, it can be seen and or reported. That's what these equity people are shooting for. And then how about Mamdani's desire to ban all firearms? Swalwell once said, I remember this when Swalwell was in an interview, he says, yeah, we want to confiscate your guns. He's like the only one that's actually come out and said it. Now we have a second one that's actually coming out and said, we've been saying that's what gun control is about all along. Since the very beginning, they want to ban your firearms. They want to get rid of the Second Amendment. They want to throw it out the window. They want to implement rent control across the board. They want to get rid of your firearms. They want to get rid of your ability to protect yourself, and you're going to live in their housing while you're at it. And then on top of that, he's calling for government-run grocery stores, which history shows always results in shortages, rationing, and economic collapse. And then I was watching a segment about the what's it called? Something Fresh stores there in Kansas City. Government-run, city-run. Shelves are empty. They're costing them more money than they're receiving. It's a disaster. Because, see, if you do not have profit, if you do not have private ownership, it's just another government job. It's just another government facility run by a bunch of people who have never held a job or owned a business before. DMV is a great example. You want your grocery store to be like DMV? Long lines with nothing on the shelves? Because that's what'll happen. I've got friends of mine who, one of them, Arkady, who is originally from Soviet Union, Ukraine. And he told me about how not only were the shelves usually pretty empty, but you were limited on what products you'd have. When he first came to the West and he sees all these different yogurt brands on the shelf, he says to the lady, what are all these different color packages? He says, well, those are different flavors of yogurt. You got blueberry and strawberry and vanilla, and she's naming them off. He's shocked. Because if there's yogurt on the shelf in Soviet Union back then, it's plain. That's all there is. And then he came across some strawberries. He figured they had to be wax strawberries because strawberries weren't in season. So the lady says, no, go ahead, try one. He eats their strawberry. It tastes wonderful. He's amazed because, see, when government runs stuff, these grocery stores, look at Venezuela. It got to the point where toilet paper even couldn't be had. I have my oral surgeon, before I moved up here to the Oregon coast, I was down in Southern California, was originally from communist Poland. And he said you would get up at 6 in the morning to be in line by 7 in the morning for a store that's supposed to open at 8 in the morning that doesn't open until 10. Why would they open on time? They're just a bunch of government workers. And then by the time you get in there, all that's on the shelf are soup bones. But then you see some guy down the street who's got a bag full of size 7 shoes. You don't have anybody in your family that wears size 7, but you buy the shoes so that you can sell them, hopefully for a little bit more, so you can afford some food. That's what communism does. That's what government-run grocery stores, government-run industries, it always results in shortages, rationing, and economic collapse. Always. And then on top of that, Mamdani wants to decriminalize prostitution. Create safe injection sites. Yeah, that really worked well in the places that's been tried. End cash bail. In other words, the criminals, once they are out there again, they never come back for their court date. Decriminalize all drug possession. The state of Oregon did that. You know what happened? They recriminalized it because it was such a disaster. And he wants to completely end all cooperation with ICE, making New York not just a sanctuary city, but a sanctuary for lawlessness. And here's the kicker. None of this is happening in a vacuum. Mamdani represents the next phase of the progressive left's ideological evolution and revolution. See, these people used to hide. It used to be the frog in the pot. Remember that allegory? You know, you put the frog in the pot, you turn on the water, you slowly turn it up. Frog's like, warm water. I'm in a nice hot tub. Turn the water up a little bit more until it gets used to it. And before you know it, the frog is cooked. That's what they used to do. There's a book called The Unseen Hand A. Ralph Epperson. And in the book, right there in the introduction, it talks about how the socialists in the Democratic Party and the socialists in America insert their socialism just a little at a time. That way you don't notice. Well, that's okay. It's just a little bit. It's okay. Before you know it, it's a lot. But you didn't notice. Because, you're just inching toward a socialism. You're inching toward it little bit by little bit. They're not hiding anymore. They're not just inching toward socialism. They're sprinting into Marxism, and they're doing it with a big grin on their face. And this isn't just a New York City problem with Mamdani. This is a preview of coming attractions if conservatives, independents, and even classic liberals don't take seriously what's unfolding. I mean, we used to argue over tax rates and infrastructure. Now we're arguing over whether or not America should continue to exist as a free market republic at all. They hate America. Of course, they always have, I think. But now they really hate it. Now they want to destroy it. Cloward Piven, right? You destroy it and then you rise from its ashes like a phoenix. What you want. The socialism that you desire. And it's Mamdani, just 5 or 10 years ago, would have been a fringe candidate. Bernie Sanders, when it came to Hillary back in 2016, we were talking about that earlier. They were like, oh no, that's too far, that's too extreme, that's too far left. And so they literally played games with their primaries to make sure Hillary got it. And it ticked off Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders is the norm. He's the typical Democrat now. Mamdani is the logical result of a generation that was taught in the public school system to despise its own founding, convinced that the Constitution is an outdated relic, seduced by the utopianism, communism junk of equity by force. That's what's going on here. That's what you're watching. That's why Mamdani has emerged, and everybody's going, oh, well, at least he's wanting to address the housing problem. No, you know how you address the housing problem? You get the economy in gear, you produce more houses, produce more housing, and you allow the private market to compete, which drives down prices. So what's at stake here? Everything. Because if New York embraces a communist future, the ripple effects won't stop at the Hudson River. And if we don't draw a line here, if we don't stop the communism, and I can't believe I'm even talking about this. We knew that the communists were trying to get on the inside of our government. They've been doing it since the 30s. We knew that socialism was bubbling up underneath ever since the Fabians, going all the way back to the late 1880s. But now we are literally dealing with straight out communists that want to turn us into the Soviet Union. And these ripple effects will go. We don't draw a line here, we may not get another chance to stop the slow, smiling collapse of the country we love. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dennis Patterson. I'm the founder and owner of Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists. At Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists, we take a comprehensive approach to treating patients with chronic pain in the greater Reno, Tahoe area. We believe in the biopsychosocial model. This means we use multiple disciplines such as massage therapy, physical therapy, behavioral health, and medical treatments to treat your chronic pain. A plan of care is tailor-made for each individual patient. We always recommend conservative care first, but offer minimally invasive treatments when necessary. We are your one-stop shop. If it hurts, we can help. We pride ourselves in providing passionate care and making you feel welcome and understood. We are located in Reno and in Sparks, so give us a call to schedule a new patient consult at 284-8650. Again, that's 284-8650. Or visit our website at nvadvancedpain.com. We hope you choose Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists to be your center for injury rehabilitation. nvadvancedpain.com, 284-8650.
Can you define the 4 different parts of Medicare? Do you have Medicare prescription drug gap coverage? At Nevada Senior Advisors, we will walk through the different parts of Medicare, including Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, Part D prescription drug plans to help you determine which option is right for you. Visit nvsenioradvisors.com, call 775-674-2223 to set up an appointment. Nevada Senior Advisors is not affiliated with or endorsed by the federal Medicare program or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.
Barbecue the Butcher's Kitchen would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
And welcome back, Mr. Constitution Radio, Douglas V. Gibbs. And actually, the best way to get the show, if you missed it, is to go to zackyradio.com. Pick one of those clicks, find the show. DouglasVGibbs.com. I've been putting the links there as well to get you to the Rumble channel. I tend to go with Rumble because I know certain places aren't so favorable of the type of things I have to say. And I want to get back to history. The Founding Fathers knew what they were doing. They, in 1787, during the summer of 1787, they sat down, they wrote that Constitution. It was debated heavily. Matter of fact, Warhamster and I are going through Madison's notes regarding those debates. So if you want to check that out, find the Warhamster channel at rumble.com slash Warhamster. I believe you got to capitalize the W and the H for Warhamster in order to get it. But, and also I put the links on politicalpistachio.com, douglasvgibbs.com, douglasvgibbs.com. So, but anyway, and so the Founding Fathers, when they set up the system, they recognized that too much democracy and unfettered liberty, freedom, free-for-all was dangerous. But monarchy, control, dictatorship, totalitarianism was also dangerous. They wanted to find balance. They wanted to find that happy medium. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently who corrected me when I said the words free market. Well, we want a fair market, not a free market, he said. Now, his intentions, while essentially correct, echoed an error that has plagued the American system since the word free got a makeover along the way from the Founding Fathers to our time today. With freedom comes responsibility. Yes, free doesn't mean just free for all. When we say free in the terms of what America is about, of course we don't mean free for all or do as you please without any restraints. With freedom comes responsibility. You've heard that. Understanding that, we have to be careful that we don't lurch too far in the other direction. Words have meaning, yes, but we are supposed to apply common sense along the way. One of the things I'm enjoying about President Donald Trump is, hey, this is a common sense revolution. Yes, there are always exceptions, alleviations, reasonable expectations as we navigate the waters of history and liberty. And I have the freedom and the right, for example, to swing my arms. I'm free to swing my arms as I wish on my property or in my house or on a sidewalk as I walk down it or in a crowd, providing that I am responsible with that right. If I swing my arms while performing another task, it may create a dangerous situation. So using common sense, I don't swing my arms while operating my tractor or driving my car or eating dinner. I also don't swing my arms in a crowd because, well, while I have the right and freedom to swing my arms, others have a right not to be struck in the face. So it's my responsibility to be reasonable with my freedom to swing my arms. And while there should be no government prohibition regarding the swinging of my arms, there will likely be consequences according to the law if I swing my arms while driving my car. There definitely be consequences if I swing my arms into someone's face or if I crash my car because of my arm swinging activities. So yes, I am free to swing my arms, but the word free does not mean there are no limits or that there should be no limits. Most of those limits, most of the time, are self-imposed. because we assess the situation. We're responsible with our actions, our rights, our freedoms. And the few might be imposed by the culture, which is a good thing if it's a virtuous culture. Certain members of the public who have a respected voice might say something, or laws might be imposed by the government based on the details of a situation, the impact those details might have on an overall functioning of an orderly society or the rights of others. Okay, I get that. But for the most part, that is how our freedoms, rights, American activities are supposed to operate and be governed. There should be no law against swinging one's arms, but there should be one against striking someone in the face. And while I should be able to swing my arms in a responsible manner and in a way I prefer without government dictating to me my personal activities, a government should not call for the removal of my arms because I might use my arm swinging pursuits in an irresponsible manner. Yes, that was a gun idea there. The government should have laws in place that may address the results of me swinging my arms in an irresponsible manner. And if government doesn't have such laws, then once a few faces get smacked, the people will likely call for those laws and they will emerge as time passes. So such is the true nature of our freedom and our liberty and the real application of the consent of the governed. Freedom and liberty are not calls for libertarian free-for-alls. But the dangers of freedom and liberty being used in a manner that could have sour consequences does not mean we need to go in the opposite direction and succumb to rigid government regulatory tyranny. Our free market is exactly the same thing, operates the same way, just like swinging arms. Of course, when I say I believe and I am a firm supporter of free market economics, I'm not saying that I believe in a no-holds-barred, out-of-control, chaotic free-for-all. But at the same time, I do not support the irresponsible, uncontrolled meanderings of government, corporations, or a mercantilistic combination of the two claiming to be residing in the false name of free economics. I have no problem with corporations doing well. I have no problem with someone making lots of money. It's when government and that entity begins to collude together, I have a problem. We seek balance, checks and balances. And we do that with everything we do. That's with all things American, right? So today, we have a civilization deeply influenced by ideologies and philosophies that stand in opposition of free market economics. Karl Marx created a term to label, and I mentioned this earlier, to label the free market ideals of American economics to make it nothing more than just another ism, capitalism. And for fear of being a stereotype of the things that left-wing ideologues claim are the results of the sins of the free market economics, we have moved away from our laissez-faire intent of the founding fathers. And now we have some kind of hybrid of what we once had in the socialist left version of what would be fair. And suddenly, what has been advertised as irreconcilable opposites, capitalism and socialism, now they share a common core in their rejection of the originally intended idea of free market economics as envisioned by the framers of our young fledgling country as it was being forged during the fires of revolution and the dying old world of monarchies and empires. The new free market claims to champion freedom and progress, with government sticking their giant wooden spoon into the bubbling stool to make sure everything mixes accurately and that no bad ingredients get thrown into the whole mix. For some, that might seem noble on the surface, and when it comes to certain things, government involvement with rules and regulations might even seem necessary. But at what cost? How is it that we are willing to give up a winning combination through paradoxical contributions that is actually facilitating the disappearance of the foundational principles of what the free market is actually truly about? They have replaced our liberty with regulations, our workers with foreign labor, and they have conjured up a hyper-administered system that benefits the global elites while claiming they are protecting us from the corporate robber baron elites who are laughing in the corner with the very people claiming they are our saviors. The people who are claiming that they're protecting you from the robber barons are the robber barons, or they are hanging out with them. When I say robber barons, I'm not talking about corporate interests that do really well. I'm not talking about massive corporate. I'm talking about massive corporations that align themselves and collude with government. That's where the problem arises. Those who have convinced us that a truly free market is dangerous and that regulatory influences by government across the board are absolutely necessary have changed the system. And they do so unapologetically because their implicit goal is to dismantle the free market, terminating the foundational principles that not only were instilled into our system by the founding fathers, but have historically crafted and sustained Western civilization. Historically, when free market ideals are unleashed in a system, even if in a limited manner, thanks to the over-intrusive nature of today's style of governing, the free market always wins. Economies always improve and prosper when the free market economic ideas are released and unleashed. Every time. While those out there, those knuckleheads, promote socialistic ideas that call for governmental intrusions to the very heart of what the concept of a free market is supposed to be about, inserting their own forms of regulation or control over the means of production, the location of the workforce, the rules of marketing, and the method of delivery. If one dares to question one iota of their theories, we are warned how dangerous a free market can truly be if a free market is unleashed without their ideological foot on the brake. Full freedom, if untethered to government influences and control, they assure us, can be catastrophic. So they parade in front of us the realities, in order to convince us of the industrial titans of the Gilded Age, the collusion between corporate elites and legislative members that brought about the 17th Amendment, Teddy Roosevelt's trust busting, monopoly dismantling, and how we've seen corporations put prioritize their corporate profit over local communities, and they've been exporting labor overseas. The free market was never supposed to be a free-for-all. But that doesn't mean it was intended to be suffocated by excess regulations put in place by people who have never navigated through the turbulent waters of starting a business, wading through the red tape of running a business, paying the taxes, dealing with employees, and the wild array of other issues associated with receiving and shipping, operating under a constant threat of government fines and hostile takeovers. A responsible free market does not outsource production to lower-cost countries. It doesn't collude with government. It doesn't import illegal aliens to perform work they falsely claim the average American would not do. It does not attack the sensibilities and moralities of the American people. The extinction of the free market, as originally intended, is not inevitable. We do have those in our midst that recognize that while laissez-faire may be gasping on the operating table in the emergency room, we have all the proper medications. The free market is a responsible market based on private ownership, private production, private innovation, and growth that impacts communities and the entire market rather than a boardroom hidden somewhere in some high-rise tower with colluding government interests shaking hands with them behind closed doors. And before the leftists go, well, Doug, yeah, but don't forget, that we have to keep things under control, or it'll just go go haywire. Yes, a responsible free market is fair, but it's not a fair market, and it does not have excessive government control. It's a free market, responsible, private, operational with as little government interference as possible. That's what the founding fathers intended. And it is our duty to embrace that inheritance, no matter what the socialist lefty commies say about it, including Mamdani. And if we do it right, we will not only launch a golden age and make America great again, but we'll push back into their shadowy hiding places the forces against a free market once again, at least for a while. And that's what we're in the process of doing, and that's why we have President Trump. Thank you for spending the time. DouglasVGibbs.com, DouglasVGibbs.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America. My friends, God bless you. See you next time.